And you heard that Frank Davis. My lawyers are still with me, Oliver and Bobby. I'll come to you shortly. But just quickly, we're crossing over to the NPP's headquarters. Manuel Cranting is reporting from there.
Yeah, but it's generally almost the same view that we had on the 9th of December when the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, Madam Jean Adukwe-Mensah, declared the results of the 2020 election. So quite jubilant moods here at the NPP party headquarters. And we'll try and get a brief reaction from my boss here. Boss, grateful. Well, he is not going to talk, but a lot of them here. Let me just speak to them. Boss, when you had your ruling the concern.
Oh, ruling it, yeah. Yeah, every thing now, yeah, you say, and it's for the case. And because, based on short number, and then you know, so, and the NPP from day one, and you say, let's not go good, yeah.
So you had him tell me that.
Want you a man or son of Superman, a great year. Want you also said the NPP does have a chance to do.
Great. So you just had him tell me that for him, even before the NDC took the case to court, they knew that the NDC did not have any merit, and just that was established by the Supreme Court just a short while ago. So most of them clad in white with victory inscriptions. Were you expecting this ruling today?
Yeah. And then I only did that.
And then he said, "Namu himself be winning." And Namu himself be winning.
Me prowess.
Okay.
Former youth organizer.
Okay.
Now me waha because of the court verdict. And I'm even do out 2 weeks.
Namu himself be winning, and I'm at your victory.
Well, briefly there, Manuel Cranting at the NPP's headquarters. Of course, supporters are in a jubilant mood. Let me just quickly wrap up our conversation. Oliver, how is this decision going to improve our election processes going forward?
I think it's going to be very difficult to say, to be honest. I think we have had two instances now in the Fourth Republic where presidential elections challenged have not been held in favor of the petitioner. The question is whether or not on the totality, and as a matter of politics, whether it undermines faith in the court as an option for parties. And I say this, and let me be very clear on this. To say that the court may not be an option is not to say that persons in an election who contest an election would resort to undemocratic means. My general view is that whenever an election is over, parties who contest an election have a multitude of democratic options at their disposal in which to voice their grievances. The court is only one of them. And so in the exercise of the ways in which they choose to express their displeasure, they may either go to the streets to protest that, and we have seen at certain points the NDC consider that as an option. So in the totality of all, I think continuously, parties would continue to ask themselves the question whether the court is the appropriate way to vent a constitutional grievance. Now, the fact remains that the court is the only institution that can effectively change an electoral result declared by the Electoral Commissioner. But it doesn't provide the only avenue to voicing displeasure about the conduct of the EC. Now, on the second point, I think one of the things that this judgment will give us is that there seems to be a sense of a disproportionate duty placed on party agents. And this is one of the things that was said in the last election and re-emphasized in this one as well. Now, certain people have viewed this as reinforcing the electoral process and enhancing it, one, by making sure that parties are vigilant when contesting the election. But an alternative view to take of this is that it may increase the contestations around the elections and also the tension that this engenders. For instance, it is going to be more and more likely that party agents will refuse to sign the forms when they are presented before them, on the basis that it could count against them when an election is contested subsequently. So we may see a rise in those incidences. But also, I worry that we continue to treat the presidential elections as some sort of private contest between two private individuals. And an election petition is not a land litigation or a contractual dispute between two market women. The presidential election is a public matter and also a constitutional duty. And the conduct of that constitutional duty we have confined to a public body, which we pay for, and we charge the allowances and salaries on the consolidated fund. For this reason, our scrutiny of the conduct of the election manager must be much more severe than we tend to do. And we reserve that sort of severity of criticism for party agents. And I think that this balance that we need to strike, I do not think that was properly struck. But on the whole, the question as to whether or not the judgment itself is well-reasoned, I think that on the basis of what it led to, the conclusions derived, you may disagree with it, which I think the petitioners are going to. But I think that when you're disagreeing with it, you may struggle to say that the judgment itself is not holistically well-reasoned. And this does not take away from those, including myself, who have had cause to disagree with the court on previous interlocutory decisions that it has made in the past.
Just finally, do you see a review?
I think as a matter of politics, I would discourage the search for a review in this particular matter. I think it's important that if political parties also ensure that there's faith in this process. And I worry that going for a review might undermine to some extent the faith. It doesn't mean that the right of a review does not exist. So as a matter of politics, if it was left with the lawyers alone, I think that every lawyer would always want another chance to try to change the court's mind. And if the lawyers were to answer that question, they would encourage a review. But I think the politicians need to take the seats and say that there should be no review. And I think that would be the right call, in my personal opinion.